They're not good enough to start. They're not even good enough to play. But they do talk a good game. So come join Lou and Jose from the sidelines where all the best sports discussions happen anyway. Welcome in to the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Welcome into the program, everybody. I am Lou Ruggieri. That is Jose Ortiz. And this is the Benchwarmerz podcast. Wherever, whenever, and however you happen to be listening, we appreciate taking some time to spend it with us. We are going to try to make it worth your while. Hopefully, you're following us along. We are proudly part of the iHeartRadio podcasting lineup, the newly formed Amazon podcast. You can find us pretty much everywhere and anywhere: Spotify, Apple, Google Play, social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Benchwarmerz podcast, Benchwarmerz with a Z, at the BW Pod on Twitter. Not super active, but we're working on it. You can email us, the Benchwarmerz podcast at yahoo.com. Benchwarmerz, again, with a Z for marketing purposes. We have a show for you, and I know we have a show for you every week, but this week is just as special as most of the other ones, if not more special. I know it's hard to rank them, but this is now week 35, Jose. Week 35 we are in. This is remarkable, I have to say, considering where we've come from.
And just to add to what you said, every show that we do is the best show that we've ever done. So that's the way I look at it.
I mean, it's a sports show. It's a sports show, so you're only as good as your last performance, a la sports, and that's how we look at it too. So this week we've put it all on the line. Coming up in the second hour, we're going to, I think the beginning of hour 2 is just going to be NBA. We're just going to lock it in, I think, because it's fun to talk about. It's right around the corner, and it seems to fit nicely there. So the start of hour 2, we're going to talk some NBA. The rest of the show is basically going to be football related. A little later in the second hour, we have to look back on our week 14 picks, look ahead to week 15, kind of go over our sports book bets that we call Put Your Money Where Your Mouth Is. A little later this hour, we have a bunch of little fun things to do. We have a highlight and a low light of the week. We have a little moral lesson that we learned. We have a stat of the week. We have our game Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, which essentially is true-false. We make some statements and we see if we agree or disagree. A new little, I don't want to call it a game because it's not a game, but a new little segment. It's going to be called The Extra Point, which I'm very proud of. I was walking my dogs today and I thought of that. I was like, oh, wow. And basically it's just going to be a 1-sentence recap of each game in the NFL this week. So we're going to make it quick and succinct, but we're going to touch on everything because we don't always get to touch on all the games every week. So we're going to fix that as of now. But first, we have to touch on our top 5 news stories in the NFL this week, according to Jose and myself, because that's all that matters in this particular show. You want to talk, you can get your own show. So without further ado, Jose, let's just jump right into it. We have a lot to get to. Top 5 news stories in the NFL this week. Number 1, shockingly, the Eagles stun the Saints, the New Orleans Saints, the best in the NFC New Orleans Saints. And not anymore because they're knocked out of the top spot. Jalen Hurts. I was touting Jalen Hurts all off season. I loved him coming out of Oklahoma. I thought he's got a great story. You know, he got booted off for Tua at Alabama. He goes to Oklahoma. You know, becomes a Heisman finalist, and lo and behold, you know, the Eagles. They looked like a real team. Alshon Jeffrey actually caught a touchdown as a receiver, and he wasn't just playing a big tight end out there. He looked fast. He was Jalen Hurts, looked fast. Alshon Jeffrey didn't look fast, but he looked poised. I mean, he was composed. As much as I disliked the Eagles growing up a Cowboys fan, I love Jalen Hurts, and I couldn't be more proud of him.
Well, yeah, I wanted to give you a chance to take a victory lap while you can. You know, perhaps the Jalen Hurts era is here. I'm not going to go overreacting over one game. I've had questions about his arm talent from the beginning, whether he can make all of the NFL throws, and I still have questions about that. But the bottom line is that it's unquestionable that the offense functioned way better. Like, I don't even know. I'm not sure. I have to think about a word in my vocabulary to really illustrate how much better the offense looked. They actually looked like a real NFL offense.
Yeah.
He gave them a spark, which is something they've clearly been missing. And for me, the Saints, this is just an inexcusable loss. And I'm not really putting this so much on the offense because, you know, the offense is going to be limited without having Drew Brees. their defense got gashed for 246 rushing yards, over 100 from both Miles Sanders and Jalen Hurts. And what makes it even crazier is if I had to guess what the Philadelphia Eagles game plan was coming in, it's like, what are the Eagles going to try to do? They're going to try to run the ball. I think everyone in the world knew that, and so I'm a little surprised that the Saints, which were one of the best defenses in the game, just really crapped the bed defensively. Kudos to the Eagles for getting a win. Jalen Hurts looked okay. It looked good. I don't want to say it looked great, but I put this more on the Saints putting up a stinker on defense.
Yeah, and I'm going to just wedge in our stat of the week right now because it pertains to this game, actually. Jalen Hurts is one of 2 quarterbacks in the last 50 years to have 100-plus rushing yards in their first career start.
Wow.
Can you tell me who the other quarterback is to have 100 rushing yards in their first career start in the last 50 years?
So I haven't heard this stat, and I feel like it's going to be someone who's not obvious, but I'm just going to go ahead and say Michael Vick.
Lamar Jackson, actually.
He would have been my second guess. Second guess.
Yep.
Okay, so it was more obvious than I thought.
Jalen Hurts, just amazing. And he looked good. I know it's one game. I get it. Yeah. But, just compare. It's the same team that Carson Wentz had last week, and they look terrible. And this New Orleans team is, I don't know, maybe they were taking it too lightly. I don't know if, Taysom Hill he didn't look terrible, but he didn't look great. Maybe we're getting a book on him. Defense is starting to get a book on him, and they're slowing down a little bit. But, with 2 backup quarterbacks, you would think that would sort of be a push, and then that the Saints would just clobber the Eagles. But the Eagles' defensive line is no joke. I mean, they play hard every single week, no matter what.
I just don't understand why they're not giving the ball to Alvin Kamara more often. I think he had 11 carries in the game. I don't know. I'm not, listen, Sean Payton has forgotten more about football than I'll ever know. So I don't want to question him too much. But in a game where you're Taysom Hill, why is he throwing 38 passes? And Alvin Kamara has only 11 carries. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, you have a top 5 running back and a top 5 wide receiver. You would think that those guys might be something you would focus on a little bit more. But
I mean, he gets the ball in the passing game. He got 10 targets. I get it. I feel like you don't control the game enough when you're not running the ball. It just seemed weird. Just one of those things. And honestly, the way the Packers are playing right now, I don't know that the Saints are getting that spot back at the top.
Yeah, that was shocking. I mean, and what's even scarier is that the Eagles actually have a chance of winning that division still, and it's just crazy. The NFC East is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the top, and there's a quarterback controversy now, a legit quarterback. And just as a side note, I don't want to get too far into this, but it's interesting now that even if Jalen Hurts does play well, it doesn't actually solve the problem that the Eagles have, because we talked about this in the production meeting today. Just they have it's a $60 million cap hit if they get rid of Carson Wentz next year. So the worst thing that could happen is if Jalen Hurts plays really well, and then you have the most expensive backup quarterback in the history of sports.
They're going to have to find a way to trade. If he continues to play well, I think they're going to have to find a way to trade him, and it might be it might sound weird. They might have to include a first-round draft pick just to get rid of him.
Yeah,
have a team say, "Hey, take Carson Wentz's contract and our first-round pick, just so you can take his contract. Yeah, we'll take a third-round pick or whatever back." And then you clear your books and you can spend your money on other areas. Yeah, I don't really know what the answer is. What I would like to think is that somehow Carson Wentz is, taking this personally. I mean, he should be, and will come back better. But I don't know. Jalen Hurts looked better that game than Carson Wentz has looked basically all season long.
Yeah, it was wild. And again, as much as I disliked the Eagles growing up, I root for Jalen Hurts, and I wish that the Cowboys had been smart enough to take him, because they might be in a better position than they are right now. But we'll get to that later. All right, story number 2, another shocker. Well, maybe not a shocker, but a surprise, at least to me. The Bills with another convincing win for the Steelers, who are now back-to-back losses after starting 11-0. And this game, I mean, it wasn't even really that close. The Bills won 26-15. Josh Allen looked pretty good, not great, but Stephon Diggs is officially the man. I mean, he was just, for a team that prides himself on defense, like, where Stephon Diggs, I mean, there's a couple passes he caught that there was nobody within 5 yards of him, and they just I mean, they made the Steelers look silly. And the only thing I'll say about the Steelers is James Conner is not the answer at running back, and Deontay Johnson, you have to hold on to the ball. I think he's got 12 drops this year. And
does he have 12 drops?
Yes,
oh my goodness!
It's pain. I think he had 3 last night. It's between him and Eric Ebron, it's painful to watch. It's like, guys, what do you do? Like, and that's what did Mike Tomlin say? He's like, those that get paid to catch balls, if they don't catch them, they'll be replaced by people that do, or something to that effect.
Yeah, I saw that. Listen, I picked the Bills to win this game, and it's because of what I've been seeing from the Steelers and from the Bills. But from the Steelers standpoint, I was never, even when they were 11-0, I wanted to give them respect for being 11-0, but I was never convinced. They never had that look of a dominant team. You look at, you can go ahead and look at margin of victory, plus minus. What I like to look at is you look at a team like the Chiefs, and I know it's not a fair comparison. They're defending Super Bowl champs. But even when they're not winning and destroying everyone, they clearly have another gear that they can go to, whether it's the fourth quarter, whatever it is.
Right. They
just have a gear that they can go to, and no one catches them at that gear. The Steelers don't feel like they have that gear. They just don't. They win the game. They listen, they still won 11 games. But to your point, Stephon Diggs is proving to be the number one receiver that the Bills needed. The Steelers, not just James Conner, they have no running game at all. They've been under 50 yards on the ground in 5 of their last 7 games and are averaging 43 rushing yards over the last 3 games. The offense is overrated. It's one-dimensional. And you don't want a 38-year-old quarterback throwing the ball 40, 50 times. They need to find a way to control the ball, especially with a team that's built on defense. They have to be able to control the ball more. And the Bills, they're just looking better and better. They just keep, it just seems like they're hitting their stride at the right time. I would be worried about facing the Bills in the postseason, no matter what team I was.
Yeah, and it's not good. The Steelers, I don't know what's happening. I mean, it's just watching that game yesterday. So Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he's looked pretty good this season, but I guess by comparison to Josh Allen, who, I mean, and granted, Josh Allen only had 6 rushes for 28 yards, but the threat of him, and for the record, by the way, you understand, no, this actually could have been our stat of the week this time. So Josh Allen had 6 rushes for 28 yards. Ben Roethlisberger all season has had 13 yards rushing.
I did not know that.
Ben Roethlisberger is he just looks like a statue back there, and they don't obviously bootleg with him. They don't really do much play action because they don't have a running game to play off of, and he's not very mobile. And I don't know, it sort of exposed the Steelers a little bit. And the Bills, I have to give the Bills a little more respect. I thought that they would kind of, as you said before, poop the bed a little bit on a big spotlight, and they came to play. And I'll tell you, I mean, James Conner should take a hint from Singletary on the other side of the ball. He hasn't had a great year this year, but he runs so hard.
Yeah, Devin Singletary is a quality running back, and James Conner feels like he might be coming to the end of his NFL career, unfortunately, because he's going to be a free agent next year, and I don't see a team really ponying up a lot to bring him on to the team. The Bills are just a complete team. They play good defense. They have a decent running game, especially when you combine it with what Josh Allen can do on the ground, and they have a strong passing game. And I want to give a little love to Cole Beasley as well, who's been kind of an unsung hero for that team. He's in the middle of a career year right now, and he's 31 years old. I've been just thoroughly impressed with what the Bills are doing. And listen, the Steelers, they're still good. They're still playoff bound, but this is a team where the defense is the number one unit on that roster, and they have to do a better job on offense of controlling the ball, controlling the clock, and they are not doing that, and they haven't been doing that against good teams.
Yeah, and the Bills are dangerous. Watch out for the Bills. Okay, that's our top two stories. And the story number 3, actually, you mentioned this team already. The Kansas City Chiefs somehow managed to hold off the Dolphins. They won 33-27, and the Dolphins are 8-5. The Chiefs now ascend to 12-1, despite what is the worst performance we've seen from Patrick Mahomes in, God, how long? He had 3 interceptions. I think up to this point he had, 2 interceptions for the first 12, 13 weeks of the season, and now he's had 3 in this game alone. He did also have 2 touchdowns. He threw for 393 yards. And again, they won the game, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But this game, I took a few things away from this. Obviously, the Chiefs, and this actually is our moral lesson. I'll drop that in right now, too. Our moral lesson of the week pertains to the Chiefs, and it comes from Aristotle, who said, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." And so it's sort of to say, the Chiefs, because they are just they win, and they're so used to winning that it's habitual. And even when the best player on their team is not playing particularly well, they still found a way to beat a very, very good team. And the Dolphins, wow. I mean, Mike Gesicki, the tight end for the Dolphins, looked great. Tua looked great. And Xavier Howard, oh my God, he made an interception in that game.
He's a stud. Ripped
it away from Tyreek Hill, and he might be Defensive Player of the Year. It's unbelievable.
Well, what I really, really like, I think Defensive Player of the Year is probably going to be Aaron Donald, but you never know.
Probably, sure.
But what I really like about Patrick Mahomes' performance in this game, he threw 3 interceptions. I like when a quarterback maybe doesn't have his best stuff, but finds a way to grit it out, tough it out, keep throwing, and get the job done. I thought a lot of guys, they throw three interceptions in the first half, and whatever, I think the first 3 quarters, whatever it was, they kind of they get afraid to throw the ball. They get gun shy. They're worried that they're not going to be able to do what they normally do. And he just goes out there and keeps playing. He doesn't worry about the mistakes. He doesn't get himself hung up on the mistakes. He still threw for 393 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And that is how you win football games. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not always going to work out beautifully where you have 400 yards and 5 touchdowns with no interceptions and everyone's saying, "Oh my gosh, you're the greatest ever." This is the NFL, and sometimes you have to find a way to fight and win. Give the Dolphins credit. They hung in there. No one expected the Dolphins to win this game. I'm not sure anyone expected the Dolphins to be this close.
Yep.
And they hung in there. They're showing that they're a quality team, but there's just another gear, as we were saying before, that the Chiefs can get to, and the Dolphins just don't have that gear.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs were worse on third downs. They had less total plays. They had more penalties and more penalty yards. They had more fumbles lost. They had more interceptions thrown. They lost the time of possession, and somehow they still managed to win this game.
That's the mark of a good team, when you can win ugly.
Yeah, that's scary. That's real scary. And that should be a cautionary tale to anybody that's going to see these guys in the playoffs, that even if they're playing bad, they're still probably better than you.
Yep.
Good job for the Dolphins. Dolphins, pat in the back. They're Brian Flores, Coach of the Year.
Do you think the Dolphins have a chance? Like, if the Dolphins, let's say the Dolphins sneak in as a number 7 seed into the postseason, I think they're on the outside looking in right now. I'm not 100% sure. But if they sneak into the playoffs, is this a team you'd be worried about facing?
Well, they would play the 2 seed. They would play the 2 seed. Yeah, they're in the playoffs as of this
they're
right now.
Number 7 seed.
So if they're 7, they would end up playing the 2 seed, which would probably be Pittsburgh at this point. And I would honestly, that's a scary game right there. I would, if I'm the Steelers, I do not want to see the Dolphins because
I'd much rather play
playing.
The
Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins. I don't know if I would take them, but if they had points, I might go Dolphins on that one because that's not a good matchup for the Steelers. Yeah. But all right, that's story number 3. Story number 4, from a defensive-minded game to an offensive game. Wow, Ravens beat the Browns in what was just a scoring fantasy. I don't even. This was like a fantasy player's dream. It was 47. Ended up being 47-42 Ravens, and wow. I mean, this game was back and forth and back and forth. It was everything you could possibly want in a game that I think was a must-win for the Ravens. Really, more so, way more than the Browns. Which, I mean, God, when's the last time you said that? And it was the Lamar Jackson show on offense. He rushed for 9 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just blew away the anybody else on the team by more than double. And it's what we expect from Lamar Jackson. He lit it up, and watching him run, the one thing I took away from that was it's not just his speed that's unbelievable. It's his vision. Like, he has like special vision on the field. The way he just dances around and he can see angles, and I was so impressed with just the things that he could see almost before I could. And I'm watching on TV. And so it was unbelievable.
Yeah, he's a special player. I thought the Ravens were actually fortunate to come away with the win here.
I agree.
It was about probably the best I've seen Lamar Jackson play all season long. And he left the game for part of the time. And when he left the game, I was like, well, this game is over. The Browns are going to win this game. And then he came back at the end like a conquering hero, and then throws the touchdown to Marquise Brown. And all of a sudden, the Ravens are in control. I think the Browns, you got to look at this game as the one that kind of got away. You have a lead late. Your offense puts up 42 points. You've got to win that game. You've got to win that game. If you're a serious team, serious playoff team, want to try and make some noise in the postseason, this is the type of game you've got to win. You could have buried the Ravens and basically killed their playoff hopes with a win that you should have had. I know Baker Mayfield threw a bad interception early. I think it was in the third quarter, where it got ran back for a touchdown. I think he made up for it by making some big plays later in the game. But I just, looking at this defense, you've got to step up and make a play late in that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think that this is a sign that the Browns are on the up and up. I mean, they still have a better record than the Ravens right now. I mean, Baker Mayfield, it wasn't exceptionally efficient. 28 of 47 for 343, 2 touchdowns and interception, which is okay. But this is not. I mean, for what we've seen the Browns as with their team identity, what it's been up to this point, where the winning formula seems to be hand the ball to Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt and have Baker Mayfield kind of play off of them. And then last week and this week, we kind of see Baker Mayfield having to take center stage, and he's been doing well. I'll give him credit. He's certainly looked better than he's looked in quite a while, if not ever. And it's just he's spreading the ball around, and I think Jarvis Landry is one of the most underrated players in the league. I mean, his stat line isn't great, 6 for 52, but some of those were on key possessions and
there was a fourth
downs.
Down play there.
Yeah,
he got. Yep.
And so, it's a tough loss, but yeah, I think that the Ravens were the better team on that day, especially considering the fact that Lamar Jackson took some time out, and Trace McSorley kind of went in there and spotted the Browns a couple touchdowns. And overall, it's one of those games. And I think these teams are going to see each other. Obviously, they're going to see each other again in the regular season, but they're going to see each other possibly even in the playoffs.
My last thing I'll say is the Browns. I don't think anyone's expecting too much from them in the postseason, assuming they make it, which it looks like they will. But the future looks bright to me if they can just kind of hold the fort, stay the course, and add to this team and build on this team. Look to trade Odell Beckham Jr. in the offseason as soon as he's healthy. As soon as you can possibly trade him, trade him. Get what you can get for him. Go with Donovan Peoples-Jones. Draft another wide receiver. The formula is working right now, as you said. Running the ball, spreading the ball around to whoever's open. All of a sudden, David Njoku's getting some targets.
Yep.
I like what I'm seeing, and I like the direction this team is going in. Just stay the course.
I agree, 100%. And there's definitely a lot of suitors for a guy like Odell Beckham. I mean, for sure. Top 5. So our 5th top story of the week, and this actually this ties into my highlight and lowlight, so we can maybe bring those in just a second.
Yeah.
The Bucks beat out the Vikings after a bye week. Battle of NFC wildcard teams. Bucks look like they're going to make the playoffs. Vikings look like they're probably not going to make the playoffs. And this game was so my low light of the week was just the pathetic kicking this week, and specifically Dan Bailey. I mean this. I almost put this on Mike Zimmer because he missed 4 kicks in the game, and a couple of them were like he missed some easy ones, but Mike Zimmer put him out there after obviously he's just having one of those days with the yips or whatever you want to call it, and it just I actually felt bad for him because Dan Bailey coming into this year was one of the most accurate kickers of all time, and this game just set him back. I don't even know how long, but not just him. My low light of the week is actually just the kicking overall. There were 12 missed field goals and 6 missed extra points over the 14 games on Sunday alone.
I did not know that. That's crazy. But yeah, you are right.
Insane. My highlight of the week, for the record, was kind of staying in that same vein, was what we just talked about with the Ravens. Justin Tucker hitting a 55-yard walk-off in a game that Justin Tucker is a legit weapon at kicker, and he proved just how, his Hall of Fame status in that game.
I was just about to say, Justin Tucker is probably a Hall of Fame kicker right now, and he's easily the best kicker in the game. And when the NFL initially pushed, I know we're getting sidetracked here, but when the NFL initially pushed the extra point back to 33 yards, I was against it at first, but now I actually like that it's highlighting when you have a good, solid kicker versus when you don't. As far as the Vikings, first of all, I don't think anyone's surprised that the Bucs won this game. Bucs are clearly a better team. No one's saying that, and there's really nothing to really break down on the Bucs side other than they just took care of business. Yeah. To me, I think the Vikings. I just feel like the Vikings need to take. They need. There's no reason where you have a capable quarterback like Kirk Cousins. You have maybe the best running back in the NFL in Dalvin Cook. You have Justin Jefferson. You have Adam Thielen. Their offense should be so much more explosive than it is, and it just feels like it's not. I don't know what they're doing. I feel like they need to hire someone else. Gary Kubiak is their offensive coordinator. I don't know who to blame, but I'm so uninspired by their offense at times. It's so unimaginative to me.
Yeah, it feels. I mean, it feels like Kirk Cousins had a good string there for a little while, but he kind of came back down to earth in this game. Uncharacteristically, he ran 5 times for 41 yards, which I thought was really surprising. Interesting. But he only threw for 225 and a touchdown. So yeah, I mean that's a very. And granted, they're playing a very good Bucs defense, but it's just. I think you're right, and I think Kirk Cousins is the problem. I think he's just not. He's good, but he's not great. And I think with the talent that's around him, like you're saying, that team should be great, at least on offense.
Kirk Cousins is good, but not great. But as you and I have gotten into many debates about, you just don't find great quarterbacks. There's like 3 or 4 great quarterbacks in the NFL, and everyone else is good or bad, right? There's no or okay. There's not a lot of great quarterbacks in the NFL, and it kind of goes with the position. It just feels like what I look at is a guy like Kyle Shanahan. To me, Kirk Cousins is clearly better than Jimmy Garoppolo. No, it's not close, but Jimmy Garoppolo hits open guys all the time. There's guys who are just running wide open. Why? Because they have a creative offensive mind. If you have a creative offensive mind, Jared Goff, Sean McVay turned Jared Goff into an MVP candidate. Like when you have a creative offensive mind, you can make do with a good quarterback. They're not maximizing what they have right now. You don't have to be Patrick Mahomes. Just maximize what you have. Just lastly, one thing I'll say about the Bucs. Good win for them. I still don't really see them doing much in the postseason. It just feels like their offense is stuck in third gear. They have kind of I don't know. I just find myself also uninspired by their offense. I don't know if it's because Ronald Jones is not a great running back, or what it is. Maybe they have too many offensive options and it's crowding things. Just feels like their offense is kind of stuck. It hasn't really hit its stride yet, and it's getting kind of late now.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette didn't play in this game either, and I think that the Bucs feel like they're a bunch of parts that are, they're disparate parts. They're not, there's no synergy. It's not like they're just not clicking together for whatever reason. And I think maybe what the Bucs should look at for next season is James White is going to be a free agent, and I think Tom Brady desperately needs kind of that check down. If you're not going to have a strong running game, then do what Tom did in New England. Just you make your short passing game your running game, but you need backs that can catch the ball, consistently.
Yeah. Ronald Jones, obviously, I mean, I don't know how many drops he has, but he has a lot this season. He's obviously not a great pass catching back.
But all right. So that'll do it for our top 5 news stories in the NFL in this week. We're going to take a break and come right back. We have 2 little segments to get to: Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, and The Extra Point, where we're going to recap each and every game in one sentence. So stick around for that and more on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
If you're sick with COVID-19 or think you might have it, take steps to help protect other people from getting sick. Stay home except to get medical care. Call the doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a cloth face covering to protect others. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Avoid sharing items with other people in your home. This includes things like towels and bedding. Be sure dishes are washed in hot water or the dishwasher before anyone else uses them. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit cdc.gov.
Welcome back to the Benchwarmers podcast, where being all talk is actually a good thing. Now, back to the action. Or talk, I guess.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. I am still Lou Ruggieri. That is still Jose Ortiz. And this is still the Benchwarmers podcast. Appreciate you taking some time to hang out with us. Coming up in the second hour, we're going to shift gears to the NBA. Very exciting. There's a lot of news going around. Some Eastern Conference preview talk we're going to get to. We have to look ahead after that to the next week, week 15 already in the NFL, and kind of make some picks and bets. We just touched on the top 5 news stories in the NFL in week 14. And now we're going to play a new, it's not really a game, I don't know what to call it. It's a new segment we're going to call the Extra Point. And basically, we're going to go through all the games in rapid fire succession and give a one sentence recap of our takeaway from each game in the NFL. Because, it's not easy. Yeah, this is our inaugural attempt at this. So these sentences are bound to get better at some point. But I'll just run through them, Jose. Give me your one sentence. I'll give you mine, and we'll just keep going. So the first game, Patriots losing to the Rams 24-3.
Rams are better on offense, defense, and special teams, so this is not surprising.
Very similar. The Rams might be the most well-rounded team in the NFL.
Fair enough.
Titans crushing the Jaguars 31-10.
Derrick Henry belongs in the MVP discussion.
That's a good one.
He's not going to get any votes because he's not a quarterback. He's not rushing for 2,000 yards, but
yeah. If I have a child who I want to be a wide receiver, I'm going to name him AJ, and then his last name is going to be a color. So we have AJ Brown from the Titans from this game, and AJ Green, by the way, on the other one in the Bengals, which we'll get to
White next.
Yeah, that's my sentence. So, all right. Game we just touched on, Vikings losing to the Buccaneers 26-14.
Vikings need a change on offense. I'm not sure what it is.
Mine is just Godspeed Dan Bailey, because I don't expect him to be on the team next week, and which is not fair, but I think that's more Mike Zimmer's fault than Dan Bailey, but Mike Zimmer's not going to fire himself. He's going to fire Dan Bailey. The Chiefs beating the Dolphins 33-10.
The Chiefs are the best team in the NFL. Not the Dolphins had no chance.
Mine is the Chiefs are good even when they're bad.
I like that one. That's much better than mine. All right. I'll have to get you next time.
We'll practice these, so we'll get better. So it's extra point to make it quick. Broncos edging out the Panthers 32-27.
Panthers desperately need Christian McCaffrey back.
I don't know what the Broncos are. is my thing.
Drew Lock throws 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah, I mean, has he had 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games combined? Like he's the most volatile quarterback.
Yeah.
He feels like the new Baker Mayfield. Like he's like up and down and up and down. You don't know what to expect. And I don't know if he's the answer or not, but whatever. So, all right. The Texans, shockingly, losing to the Bears in a beatdown, 36-7.
Deshaun Watson is overrated.
Oof. The Bears defense has been waiting for their offense to show up for 14 weeks.
Yeah. It's like, oh, nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. Hey, Ty Montgomery, where did he come from? I mean, that was crazy. He all of a sudden in the last 2 weeks, it's like, oh, I can run the ball. Jeez, I forgot.
Turned back 5 years.
Yeah. So, all right, next game, Cardinals putting a beat down on the Giants, 26-7.
Welcome back, Kyler Murray.
My one sentence extra point is Colt McCoy might be the answer.
Ooh.
Shout Daniel Jones.
Shots fired. All right.
Sorry, DJ. Cowboys putting a beat down on the Bengals, 30-7.
Why don't the Cowboys want a better draft pick? What are you doing?
Very similar. The Andy Dalton revenge game might actually end up scorching the Cowboys. Because what are you proving at this point? All you're proving is that you could have been good and you suck, and now you're going to even just. The
Bengals are going to get a nice draft pick to pair with Joe Burrow when he's finally healthy next year.
Yep.
So.
Colts putting a beat down on the Raiders, 44-27.
Why did I buy into the Raiders this offseason?
Let's see. My extra point. If Phillip Rivers doesn't turn the ball over, watch out for the Colts. Because they looked scary good. And T.Y. Hilton, welcome back. It's nice to see him kind of blowing it up again. The Jets. They lose to the Seahawks 40-3 and just
Can the Jets just stay home? I mean, that's my sentence. Can they just stay home at this point?
Trevor Lawrence, welcome to New York. Is my sentence. I mean, the Jets need a gut job and just take it down to the studs and start building it back up. You got to just flush it all out.
And thankfully, they don't have a really nicely built house. They barely had a foundation, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. The Packers edging out the Lions 31-24.
Aaron Rodgers is the MVP.
I had the exact same sentence.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that. I mean, I know we only said when you mentioned that a week or two ago, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, it's definitely Patrick Mahomes. And then, in the middle, like in the offseason, in between shows, I was just looking at his stats. I was like, oh my goodness, Aaron Rodgers is having one of the best seasons of his career. But
yeah, he is. I mean, him and Kyle and LaFleur are just. It's clicking. And Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if we give out awards, he is. He's shining, polishing some poop because he's making those guys look. Aside from Devontae Adams, I mean, he is just making those. Robert Tonyan, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Alan Lazard. Like, who these guys on any other team are probably practice squad players. All right, Falcons losing to the Chargers in a juxtaposition. Last-minute field goal by the Chargers to win the game instead of them losing at the last minute.
Trade Matt Ryan and Julio Jones right now. Or this, you can't do it now, but trade Matt Ryan and Julio Jones this offseason, get some draft picks.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. My extra point is Justin Herbert, the best quarterback in that draft.
Looking like it. Certainly looking like it.
Joe Burrow, I know he's hurt, but
only 1 year, but it's certainly looking like it.
Washington football team beating your San Francisco 49ers 23-15. Your extra point, please.
Washington's going to win this division, win in the NFC East.
And mine, similar. Chase Young is a superhero.
Yeah,
he looks like a comic book character. He is 6'5" and like 265 pounds, and he just
lightning fast.
Just demolished. I actually looked it up. Yeah, I think he ran like a 4.9 40 guy, which was interesting. Related, a kind of complete side note, but quick pop quiz. I'll give you a hint. It relates to this game in a way. Do you know who the fastest tight end in NFL history is? And he played for, I believe he actually played for both of these teams, but I know he played for at least one of them.
Oh, both of the teams that we just talked about here?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Brent Jones?
Vernon Davis.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was like, what? Yeah, no.
4.340 in the combine. Fastest tight end in history.
Wow.
And I was just I was looking up Chase Young and how fast and how strong he was and his combine numbers. And then I fell into a rabbit hole of combine stats.
Yep.
And I came across Vernon Davis, who just unbelievable. So good for him.
Completely forgot about Vernon Davis. Yeah. Amazing athlete.
Yeah. All right. Saints, we touched on this earlier. Saints losing to the Eagles 24-21.
Bad loss by the Saints. Probably cost you home field advantage.
My extra point. Jalen hurts Carson Wentz's feelings.
Very clever.
Yeah. Hurts to Ertz, by the way, is going to be catchy. That's gonna catch on real quick in fantasy.
It's a shame Ertz probably has like 1 year left in his NFL career. So,
Steelers losing to the Buffalo Bills 26-15.
Got to step that running game up in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's got to step that running game up.
Bills are contenders. Steelers might be pretenders.
Very clever.
Tough to say. It's tough to say about an 11-2 team, but I don't know. I'm starting to buy into what you've been saying. Finally, extra point, last game. Ravens edging out the Browns 47-42. Your extra point, please.
Lamar Jackson saved the Ravens season.
It's pretty good. I have the Browns, still the baby brother to the big boys in the AFC North.
During that entire game, like when it was happening at the end, I was like, "This is exactly what Lou is talking about." The Browns are not the youngest, but the Bengals are the baby brother.
The Bengals are like the adopted baby brother. Like they're not even. They're like, "Come on, get out of here."
The Steelers and Ravens, they're the big brothers.
But it feels just like a mental edge that the Steelers and the Ravens have over the Browns, where they're just like, "Nah, man, you guys think you're good, you're not good." And the Browns kind of, it's like they're still fighting the ghosts of their past. Where I know I'm getting into kind of crazy talk, but it just feels like there's sort of this ominous, foreboding feeling, like they're just waiting for the other shoe to drop because they're the Cleveland Browns, and they could have won. They should have won this game, honestly, but they didn't. All right, so that's it. That's our extra point, the inaugural edition of the Extra Point. One sentence to recap each game. Pretty good. We'll see what we can move along. We're going to move along now to a well-established segment of our show, Make No Mistake or Give Me a Break, which is essentially just true false. So, Jose, you have 3 statements to make. I'm going to say either make no mistake, that's absolutely true, or I'm going to say, come on, give me a break. That's ridiculous. And then I will do the same for you.
All right, number 1, the Packers are going to the Super Bowl.
Right now, it's hard not to say make no mistake. I mean, the Saints should be the best team, and maybe when Drew Brees comes back, they will be again. But right now, Aaron Rodgers is humming, and it doesn't matter who he's throwing to because it's going to get there.
Yeah, make no mistake. They're playing like the best team in the game. They are, at least in the NFC. Their defense is good enough, and as you said, Aaron Rodgers is walking on water right now.
Yeah.
Next one. The Buffalo Bills are the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC.
That's a good one. I'm gonna have to say make no mistake. I wanna say the Colts. The Steelers you can't say anymore. I want to say the Colts or the Browns, but the Bills just. I mean, after that win against the Steelers, that it's hard not to say that they're the biggest threat. So make no mistake.
So I'm gonna say give me a break, but it's a very close. I don't want to make it like give me a break. Like no, it's very close. I think the Titans are actually the biggest threat to the Chiefs in the AFC just because of what Derrick Henry does in the cold.
Yeah, their style. Yeah, that's true.
If he just gets going, I mean, I know that the Chiefs they have a decent defense, but if it happens to snow in Arrowhead or something like that, I don't know. I think the Titans are probably the biggest
Good
threat.
call.
All right, my last one. Carson Wentz will not be an Eagle next season.
That's going to be give me a break. I would like to see Carson Wentz move on, specifically to the aforementioned Colts. I think reuniting him with Frank Reich would be an extremely beneficial decision to make for both parties. I think the Colts have enough cap room where they could take on that contract, and I think Carson Wentz might have to get, the Colts might have to be bolstered a little further with that deal. They might have to be incentivized a little more, like we were talking about kind of off air. But I don't think that it's going to happen. Carson Wentz has a $59 million cap hit, dead cap money next season if the Eagles move on from him. And I don't think that the Eagles are ready to do that. I think that they might get rid of their coach before they get rid of their starting quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, unless they can find a way to pry Danny Ainge from the Boston Celtics to work some magical deal like he always seems to do, I just don't see any way that they can move his contract. It would be nice, but I don't see it happening. So yeah, I'm going to say give me a break.
All right, my make no mistakes or give me a break. Number one, Mike McCarthy will not be the Cowboys head coach in 2021.
I'm going to say give me a break. It's only been 1 year. It's been a bad year, but they'll re-up him. They'll give him another shot.
Unfortunately, I'm also going to say give me a break because I think that they are going to give him another shot, and I just don't think that it's a smart idea. Mark McCarthy does not strike me as very good. It's just
I just know who you're upgrading to. I don't know who you're upgrading to. That's the one.
But I mean, look, if you look at all the guys that have come in this season alone, Matt LaFleur was nobody until he showed up. Cliff Kingsbury had a losing record in college, and he came in and started dominating. I mean, not that the Cardinals are doing that great, but they're certainly looking better than the Cowboys are this season.
Absolutely.
Joe Judge, Matt Rule, it's just it's. Even Ron Rivera was up for the Jerry Jones could have gotten him, and look what he's doing with the Washington football team. It just feels like it's doomed. It was doomed from the start. I mean, Jerry kind of felt like it was an impulsive decision. Mike McCarthy slept over his house, and the next day he's the head coach. Like, how does that even happen?
I feel like you got to give him one more year, and if it doesn't, if you don't make the playoffs next season, which let's be honest, like next year. The NFC East is going to be just as winnable as it was this year, right? So it's not like any team is really going to be. I mean, maybe the Redskins make a big leap, but I think it'll be wide open again next season, and the Cowboys will have every chance to win the division.
Yeah, we'll see. Speaking of the division, my next one, the Washington football team will make the playoffs this year and win a playoff game.
Well, you had me up until win a playoff game. I'm gonna say give me a break. I don't see them beating any. Like they're gonna get in. They'll get a home game. That means they'll have to play the Buccaneers or the Cardinals or one of these teams. I just don't see them getting a win there.
Yeah, I mean they'll definitely be a wild card team. It feels like, or no, they wouldn't be. They'd have to.
They'll win the division.
Yeah,
and they're gonna play a better wild card team. So it'll.
That's right.
I just don't see.
I think that I can't say make no mistake. I'm going to say give me a break because but it does feel like that the Washington football team, after beating the Steelers and then beating the well-coached San Francisco 49ers, that defensive line specifically with Chase Young is just dominating. I mean he reminds me of Nick Bosa, last year, and how that Ohio State team that had both of those guys on the same team didn't just destroy the entire world is beyond me, but. He is easily the best overall player in that entire draft, and the Washington football team is lucky to have him.
I think if looking at it, if the Washington football team, if the playoffs started today, I think Washington would have to play Seattle, and
they could win that game though.
They could.
They could.
I'm not predicting that.
Yeah, I wouldn't put anything on it. Yeah. Finally, the Vikings will move on from Kirk Cousins next season.
I don't know what his cap number is, but I'm going to say give me a break. I think they may draft a quarterback next season and get him in the system. I call it the Lou Ruggieri method now, where hey, you have a guy, you're not going to re-sign him. Draft someone now So that way, in a year or two, when you're ready to cut the guy, you have a guy who's ready and you don't have to draft someone and then start over. That's the mistake that people make.
Yeah.
They cut the guy, then they draft the person. No, you should have drafted the person a year early. Then you can cut your guy.
Yeah. Very smart. All right, so that'll do it. Make the mistake or give me a break. And Jose, finally, to round out the hour, I gave you my highlight and lowlight of the week earlier. I'd like to hear yours before we take a break and go to hour number 2.
Okay, well, I touched on this earlier. Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize that you had this left in you. And I want to give you a heartfelt apology. I was throwing dirt on your grave way too early.
So are the Packers in the offseason, apparently.
Another 3 touchdowns, now at 39 touchdowns
and a rushing
4
touchdown.
Interceptions this season.
And a rushing touchdown, don't forget.
And a rushing touchdown, yeah. On the verge of the best season, or one of the best seasons of his career. If he had this year last year, I don't know that the Packers are drafting Jordan Love. I keep forgetting his name. Jordan Love at the beginning of the year. In the first round. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I'm sorry. I wanted to quickly, I touched on too, another highlight. Cole Beasley, I told him earlier, he's on pace for a 1,000-yard season. I don't know if people realize that. It'll be his first 1,000-yard season of his career. I don't know if he's going to get there, but he's in the neighborhood. My low light of the week, the Raiders. The Raiders were looking like a playoff team, have lost 3 of their last 4 over the last 4 weeks. And 3 of the last 4, and they almost lost to the Jets, mind you. Over the last 4 weeks, they're allowing 37.5 points per game. I don't know what they're going to do this offseason, but it better involve getting a playmaker, multiple playmakers on defense on that team.
Yeah, I think that's agreeable. Cole Beasley, by the way, I heard Chris Collinsworth say that Cole Beasley might be the best slot receiver in the league. I would argue that Jarvis Landry might have something to say about that. So,
yep, fair.
All right, so that'll do it. That's hour number 1. We're going to take a break. We have to come back. We have to move ahead to week 15 already in the NFL. We have to go look back on our picks. We have our sports bet, put your money where your mouth is. We have to talk about if we won, we lost, make some bets for next week. But coming up next, it's time for the NBA. NBA's a week away, almost, a little more, 10 days away. Mm-hmm. And so we have a ton to get through. We're going to give you a little Eastern Conference preview talk and go over some news and notes, some big signings, re-signings in the NBA coming up. So stick around. We'll be right back on the Benchwarmerz podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Benchwarmers Podcast. Follow along with us on the Benchwarmers Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts.